So let's get into the second game of the rematch between Ollie and Aziz. In game one, Ollie came out on top with a fairly mixed army, to be honest. A whole bunch of different stuff he had, including carriers, Blinkstalkers and zealots, really. So let's see if things go differently this time. On the first map, Ollie sort of built pylons all over the show in a pretty weird pattern. Also tried to fake his opponent out with a cannon rush, dropping a pylon inside the main base, even though he didn't actually have anything to back it up. He didn't have the forge at home. So this time it's Azizzle with a worker out on the map early doors. Not sure what this fella's up to. There's a very odd location right up in the top right there. I mean, the 1v1 maps are diagonal spawning, so your opponent is you're just, this as a location for a proxy is just not that much closer. So sometimes you do build tech structures in strange places on the map just so that when your opponent scouts your men, they don't see them. But this is unusual. Yeah, no tech structures coming just yet, though. A bit weirdly, there's like a double supply depot built here first before the barracks goes down. I'm not sure why. We've got a gateway, and this forge then in just an utterly bizarre position. These are some unusual build locations. Pretty normal to go first pylon here, first building here, second building here, or here. So that you can make a wall out of this, so that anything that tries to attack you comes into your base has got to get past here. Against Terran, I'm not sure how much I would bother about that. I have no idea why you'd build a forge over here. But hey, so this time Ollie does have a forge pretty early on, has saturated his men successfully for minerals. He's got the 2 gases up, nothing mining out of this one just yet, and has gone for a very early +1. I've said it before, I will set again. If you're playing Protoss or indeed Zerg or indeed Terran against a Terran, Terrans are almost certainly going to have Marines early game. If you're going for an early upgrade, you're nearly always better with the armor upgrade than the attack upgrade, because of the way that Marines do damage. But nevertheless, all upgrades are good upgrades, so don't let me put you off. Azizzle here is beginning to bank a bit of money, so he has now just started the orbital command, and that is the right thing to do. I always, personally, unless I'm doing something unusual, I will generally start the orbital command pretty much as soon as I can afford it after the barracks finishes. I don't like this queue. I don't like that one bit. Just reduce the stuff in the queue and free up some money to build your expand, or to build a factory, or to build whatever you want. I'm curious to see what we're going to see happening here. It's a photon cannon. Azizzle sees this but hasn't reacted to it yet. And he kind of does need to. That is well within his vision. Oh, here come the Marines, and these 4 Marines will be able to shut this down easily. It's pretty lit for a cannon rush, so is this cannon even going to get a shot off? That looked, it's interesting there, because the 4 Marines, had they continued to focus the cannon, he wouldn't have lost a Marine. But I actually like the decision to focus down the worker. I think that's the right thing to do, because once you've killed the worker, you have ended a cannon rush. So that was a good choice. I am a little surprised with the retreat. I'm surprised he didn't just have a quick look around to see if there wasn't anything about. I quite like this. That's what this worker has done. He's gone for a ninja, a sort of hidden base up in the top right corner. And I quite like that. I do like it. At this stage in the EMS tournament, I don't know how much value there is to this sort of thing. At a slightly higher level of StarCraft, the purpose of this is to trick your opponent, because they'll scout your men, they'll scout your natural, one way or another. They will get in and they'll see that you haven't got an expand. So what goes through your mind when you scout you go across the map, you look at your opponent and you go, oh my goodness, they haven't got an expand yet and it's 5 minutes. That can only mean one thing. Either they have no idea what they're doing, which is probably unlikely, or they are just doing some sort of horrific all-in push, some just rush build that is off one base. Or similarly, you know, you scout at a slightly later time, maybe it's 7-8 minutes, and you look and they haven't got a third building, and you think, oh God, they're definitely going for a 2-base all-in. So having the hidden base can trick your opponent into reacting, into playing defensively, expecting a rush to come, when in fact you're just powering up for the late game, just mining, building up a badass economy so that you can just crush in the late game. So, you know, it's mind games. At this stage in the tournament, to be honest, people just don't scout that much. So what does this really achieve? Probably not much. In addition, you know, the level of play at this stage is normally minerals aren't a problem. So having the income from an extra base, you know, part of the mind game is that you'll have more money than your opponent thinks you'll have, is the other aspect to it. You know, even if they haven't scouted and thought, oh my goodness, they don't have a natural, maybe you've built the natural as well, well, you'll have way more money than your opponent thinks you're going to have. But you know, as I say, at this stage in the EMS tournament, not that much scouting happens, and even if it does, you know, the players aren't really experienced enough to interpret what they see and make those sort of calls about, well, you know, oh, that's a very lit expo, or that's a very lit third. How many of our players would recognize a lit third timing when they saw one? Probably very few. So while I like this as a play in general, and you know, certainly once you guys are playing on the ladder and you're out in the wild, and you're getting up to you know, maybe not so much bronze, silver, but like once you're up in gold, platinum, then this type of strategy can certainly be really effective. You can trick your opponent. You can have a large income, much bigger economy than they think. You can also get away with building a base that you don't bother to protect. You just rely on it not being discovered. So, you know, no turrets, no sort of siege tank, no bunkers to protect this against drops and stuff. You just leave it to its own devices and you hope for the best. Anyway, all good. Moving on, let's have a quick look at the tech that's happening. So in Protoss land, we've got Twilight Console coming down. We've got a Stargate also in production. So looking really quite similar to previous. Warp Gate is done, so these Warp Gates are ready to bring units in as they are doing. We've got a similar mix to before, combination of Zealots and Stalkers. Wouldn't be too surprised to see the Charge and Blink upgrades starting shortly. And there is now a Void Ray in production. Interestingly, the new patch that is now live but wasn't when this game was played has made some changes to the Void Ray, and now if you build a fleet beacon, you can turn them into speed rays, and my goodness do they move fast. They move as fast as stimmed Marines, so I expect we'll be seeing a lot more Void Ray action before too long, not just in the EMS League, but just in StarCraft generally. Let's have a quick peek at the supplies. So at present, Ollie has a massive army advantage. In addition to that, these units are 1-1. Azizzle's units are 0-0. So, you know, again, this is it's just such a strong case to make for just continuous scouting. I can't sort of emphasize that enough, the importance of knowing what your opponent is doing and what they're at. It's really common when you watch a replay of games, and don't get me wrong, you know, I talk a better game than I play. I'll watch my own replays, and I'm totally guilty of this too. It's really common to look back at a game, maybe that you've lost, and be able to pick out several times during the game when if you'd have just clicked across the map, you would have won. But if you don't scout, you don't know. So there isn't really a lot to deal with this army. But with that said, the planetary fortress here should certainly can output a lot of damage. The units in this bunker have taken the shields off a lot of the Protoss stuff. This wall is stopping these Zealots from being effective, but the Stalkers doing a lot of damage. What Azizzle needed to do there was pull the Marines back so that they were within range of the Zealots but out of range of the Stalkers, so that they could shoot them for free. And again, no repair on the planetary. the repair function for SCVs is so good as a Terran player. Planetary fortresses are heavily armored, so you know, they're really tough, and if you're repairing them, I mean, it's really difficult for an army as small as this, with no heavy duty units like immortals and stuff. It's very difficult for this type of army to kill a planetary fortress that's being repaired by 16 or 20 SCVs. It's virtually impossible. You know, they just repair it as quickly as damage is done to it, and the planetary fortress itself does splash damage. So it looks to me like this is GG. You know, these supplies tell a pretty devastating story. It's 103 to 24, and most of Azizzle's supply is in workers. So unfortunately, this Ninja Expo didn't pay off for him on this occasion. The units that are in production here are going to die pretty sharpish, and Ollie has won with basically a pretty solid you know, 2-base push. I say 2-base, I think he did have the third down, but I'm not sure how, you know, really it was an army built off 2 bases, and actually that's, you know, in general quite a nice way to play. Build yourself an army off 2 bases, drop the third base as you push out across the map, and see what damage you can get done, and if it looks like you're going to be able to end the game there and then, you can reinforce that army and really commit to the push. If it looks like you're not going to be able to end the game, you just do as much damage as you can get done, and then you run home again. I think that worker sort of running off was a bit of a hint that there might be a base in this direction, so that's kind of that's made sure that this game isn't going to end with some sort of bizarre turnaround or saltiness. Yeah, nothing here that can contest this. No opportunity to rebuild, so it is just going to be a GG very shortly, and there we have it, GG.